Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Few Connect Live for a Tuesday morning. A special thanks to Mark for joining us. Looking forward to getting things underway in 2 minutes' time for everybody. For those on the Zoom call, your microphones are muted by default. Cameras are turned off, but please feel free to turn them on. In fact, mine is not on. Let me just turn that on right now. Looking to kick things off in about 1 minute time. For those coming to us live on YouTube Live or on Facebook Live, there's a chat facility within both of those platforms. So please feel free to use that. For everyone coming to us on the Zoom call, there's chat facility within there. So please feel free to chat. There is an opportunity to ask questions of our guests and our hosts as we move through today's session. So we normally wait for those joining us for the first time until about a couple minutes past the hour before we kick things off, because as per usual, most people are flooding in after their previous meeting. So we will wait 1 or 2 minutes and we will get things underway. Thank you.
Thanks, Cam.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Few Connect Live for a Tuesday morning. Looking forward to getting things underway very, very shortly. For those joining us on the Zoom call, your microphones are turned off by default. Your cameras can be turned on though, so please feel free to turn your cameras on. Today is all about connecting and sharing. For those coming to us live on Facebook or live on YouTube, there's a chat facility within both of those platforms. Please feel free to use that to ask any questions of our guests, and I will ensure that everybody comes through. Alex Tulio, we're having a few audio issues. I'm seeing a few people this morning have actually messaged me directly saying we're having a few audio issues. So I'm just going to throw directly over to Alex Tulio. Alex, I've asked for your camera to be turned on. Your microphone should be on. So let's kick things underway straight away.
Testing, testing. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, I've got you.
Yep.
I got to the hairdresser as well tomorrow, so thank goodness for that, I say. Welcome, everyone. So, Cam, I could hear you, but okay, good. Helen can hear us now. So, welcome, everyone. So great to be here. Another week has commenced. It's Tuesday already. Now, Sunday, of course, was Mother's Day, and Cam, I've got a question for you, and that is, can you please share your secret for your scones? Because Cam was texting me on the weekend of photos of the high tea that he allegedly baked. So I'd just like to get a couple of tips, please.
You have to use lemonade, and you have to be gentle with the dough. You have to give the
controversial
dough some love, Alex. That is what you need to do.
So they did look good, mate, and I'm sure you had some a very happy wife and a happy mum, I would say, from doing that. So well done. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who are members and regulars, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we love having you part of this amazing community, and it's so cool when we get feedback that we are now part of your day and your routine, whether you're putting out the washing or going for a walk or whatever you're doing. We just love that we're part of that with you. And for those of you who haven't yet joined us and you're just coming in today, welcome. We started this amazing initiative. I can't believe it's probably 6 weeks ago, because we just wanted to keep showing up, even though the conference was postponed and the world caved in as we know it. And you know, it's 6 weeks later, and we're streaming 4 days a week, and this community is just growing every day, which is super cool. So we've always got loads of great stuff coming up. I will introduce our amazing guest from today momentarily. But before I introduce Cris, please, as a reminder, do share this. We just want to grow this community. This is all about connection, positive conversations, and bringing the financial services industry together. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So please do keep sharing with that link. This is free for 12 months for all employees of our amazing corporate partners. And as I say every time, we really couldn't do this without you. We're so thrilled that you're part of our community. So please do share this. And as I always like to say, even if you know someone who would benefit from this, who would enjoy this, please, and they're not an employee of one of our corporate partners, invite them anyway. All comers welcome. We just love having you here and having great conversations with an amazing community. So as usual, we've got a jam-packed slate of amazingness coming up. So tomorrow we've got Damien Moo, who's the CEO of AIA Australia and New Zealand. And those of you who have maybe seen the promo that we've done, we had a really fun chat, and we're going to talk about a whole range of things from clarity, empathy, leading with the heart and mind, baking cupcakes, why he's not winning any prizes in the homeschooling stakes. So Damien's going to be amazing. He'll be on tomorrow. Of course, Thursday, we have the amazing Margaret Zeta, and Margaret does tune in quite regularly, so she might be here as well. But Margaret is just a phenomenal and inspirational woman. She's the CEO of My Room, and if you think it's hard running a charity in these times, you'd be right, it's challenging, but she is absolutely up to the task. So that's going to be an awesome session. Fridays, of course, is our Friday fitness. So, you know, I have to share that this morning I went for a run with the dogs and I've torn my hamstring. So, you know, there's a whole nother show on that. So anyway, I might be observing on Friday, but I will still be there to cheer you on. So please do join us if you haven't joined that session on Fridays. It's a lot of fun. It's 8 a.m. Steve is an amazing trainer. So we do have a great crew that comes along. And then on Tuesdays, we've got the incredible founders and directors of Visibility Co. So these women have gone on expeditions to the Antarctica. They have coached CEOs. They've done an amazing, they've got global reach. They're really very inspirational, and we'll be talking about how to be more visible and everything that means. So that's what's coming up. So there's a full deck there. For our members, of course, we keep bringing you amazing experts and specialists. And the reason why we do this is we want to just keep adding skills, value, and some great connections for you as well. So every week at the moment, we are bringing you masterclass events which are exclusive for our members twice a week. We've had some amazing masterclasses already. For those of you who know Sal Wilson, and you might have come to her imposter syndrome masterclass a couple of weeks ago, she is on for our members again today and talking all about self-sabotage and the science behind that and why we do that to ourselves and how we can actually overcome that. So if you've heard Sal, you know she's incredibly practical. So it's not too late to join her session at 2. All you need to do, members, is just go to our website and just register there. So that's super easy. So there's still some spots available for 2. Now on Thursday, we've got the incredible Nikki Smith, who also joined us on a panel with Judith a couple of weeks ago. Now, Nikki, I think you might be in the crowd, though maybe she's not. Oh, you are. I thought you were. There you go. It's that pesky mute button. So I'm really pumped for your session on Thursday. Can you maybe give everyone a bit of a sneak preview about what you'll be talking about on Thursday?
Absolutely. So I'm delivering a masterclass on how to uncover your dream role. So every week I speak to high achievers, corporate workers who are men and women who often say to me things like, something's not quite right. I think there's something else I'm supposed to be doing work-wise, but I don't know what it is. Or my favourite, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So they'll either have a whisper or a roar inside of them that there's something else that they need to pull out. So the good news is there's a way to figure it out. In Thursday's masterclass, I'll help participants uncover 3 ideas minimum, and chances are they haven't thought of these before. And I'll teach the mini experiment methodology, which really overcomes all the who am I to do this and procrastinating and self-sabotage. And also we'll make a plan to set you up to succeed as well.
Wow. Okay. So for everyone listening, don't miss that session. And I can tell you firsthand that as a recovering perfectionist, Nikki, just one of the awesome things that Nikki's taught me over my career is the mini experiment is great to just try things and not be worried about failing. It's amazing how much pressure that takes off. So please do register for Nikki's session on Thursday. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And again, for our members, you can just go to the website, drop us a line, you can register there. Tuesday, we've got the amazing Ross DeVincentis. Now, he's going to be talking about all things optimizing performance. And this is super relevant for all of us because it's about energy and health. And we've heard from so many of our amazing guests so far that we have to fill our own cup first. It's that analogy of putting your own oxygen mask on. More and more of you are telling us the days are getting longer, they're blurring into one another, I'm not moving enough, all these sorts of things. So Ross is an incredibly experienced practitioner and he's going to be giving us an amazing masterclass on Tuesday. And then, of course, a familiar face on next Thursday is the amazing Judith Beck, our founder. Are you there, Judith? You're always there, looking glamorous. You'll be in the crowd. So Judith is going to be doing a masterclass with us on Thursday about how to make a great impression in a digital world. And we've especially designed this for our members because so many of you are saying, I normally know what to do here, but now we're on Zoom, it's all different. And I don't know how to interview and I don't know how to influence stakeholders and I don't know how to make new connections. Well, Judith has got some fantastic tips around all of that in a digital world. So
Alex, could I just say one thing on that? Hi.
Oh,
I just figured out how to unmute. That's all. I've only been doing this now for the last 8 weeks and you still forget about unmuting things. That session, I'm also asking for someone to volunteer to actually be interviewed and to basically send me their resume and we'll go over what it looks like. We'll do a mock interview and how do you present yourself from an interview in the digital world when you're going through internal promotions or even external. And so if there's anyone who wants to volunteer, just let me know and then we'll have you as the person and we'll take you through the process. So I look forward to seeing everyone there.
Well, and there you go. So there's an offer to be part of a role play with Judith. So I want to see those people flooding in because in all seriousness, whenever we come out the other side of this, we're going to be doing a lot more via this medium. It's not going away anytime soon. So these are going to be really important and valuable skills for us to keep going. So that's what we've got coming up for our members. So there's a heap there. Now, as I love to say, if you are not a member or part of this community yet, don't just trust us. You can tell I'm super passionate about how amazing this is and the value we add and this incredible network. We want you to try it for yourselves. So our offer to those of you who aren't yet members, please do attend a couple of exclusive, usually member-only events on us. We have the small group mentoring, which Judith and I run, and that is a really great confidential forum where you can bring literally any problem, challenge, issue to solve, and it's confidential in a group of peers. It's a really powerful session. And then, of course, we'd love you to experience one of our masterclasses that I've just been describing. There's heaps of value there. And so please do come as our guest. And Cam's just put a link in the chat. All you need to do is literally click on that link and we'll send you an invitation and you can come and find out what all the fuss is about for yourself. So we can't wait to see you all there to be part of this community. Now, without further ado, the amazing Cris Parker. Thank you so much for joining us, Cris. I've got a short bio here, so let me read through this for those who don't know you yet, and then we're going to get into a really interesting conversation. So, for those of you who don't yet know Cris is the head of the Ethics Alliance at the Ethics Centre. Cris heads the Ethics Alliance, which is a community of organisations across sectors that works to collaboratively, thank you, shape the future of business ethics. She's also a director of the Banking and Finance Oath, a pledge of integrity and commitment that aims to increase consideration of stakeholders and decision-making accountability by financial service professionals. It's a program she helped execute and still oversees. She holds a degree in psychology and in another life, founded a Manhattan theatre company, casting agency and production studio. Welcome, Cris. Let's get rid of that slide, Cam.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So good to have you with us. And even when we've had a few chats, obviously behind the scenes and for the promo, and we've already had such interesting conversations that have gone across a whole gamut of topics that I want to jump into. So maybe a good place to start, though, is give our community just a bit of a feel for, how's your life looking at the moment? How's COVID impacted you? Because we've met loads of partners in the background, cats on desks, kids coming in, like we're seeing it all. So what's your reality look like now?
Well, not that different, actually. There's a cat and a dog and there's kids as well. I think one of the things that this situation did, which was completely unexpected for me, was it created a situation where, I'm just going to get a bit personal here. I'm just jumping in with this because I think that this is a kind of forum, and values and ethics is all about that personal touch, right? But my husband and I don't think he'd kill me if he knew this. We have a great relationship. And we've spent many years kind of on the same team. And, there are times where our values might slightly conflict, particularly around raising kids, etc., where you might want to, extend different values on the way you're bringing your children up. And COVID actually caused a pretty major clash, a value clash. And I think it's interesting in a time of crisis, or in a time where people are panicking, the kind of logical thinking goes by the wayside, and it's your true values that come up to play. Even in organizations, I think it exposes some of the cracks, because the true values underneath those espoused values come up to the top. So, we were in a situation where we differed in ideas of, how serious it was, what does social distancing look like, and in other times where those value differences have been able to be talked about and understood. This was the first time where a clash in values actually presented a threat to somebody else. And I've never been in that situation before. And so that, to be honest, was really, wasn't particularly easy to deal with when it first came up. But having said that, it's all great. And, it has all settled down, but partly because we've had to agree to disagree on certain things. So that was an interesting thing, an unexpected thing to go through, I thought. So it just made me really aware of those sort of things in businesses as well. But other than that, great. I don't want to present it like a bad picture. It's really good. It was just a really fascinating thing to recognize how strong your values come to play in your decisions.
First, thanks for sharing, and this is absolutely the forum, because this is where it's a human connection that we're building here. So, and you're not the only one. I'm sure all of us in different ways. This has really almost put a spotlight on a whole heap of different things, from business to personal. I think, like you were saying just then, Cris, I forget the words you used, but the assumed, or the surface, and what we think, when we're actually tested, what's under the surface really starts to, it gets put under a bit of pressure. And there's a lot of pressure around a whole heap of things. I think when you and I were probably chatting about this, and it seems like weeks ago, so it probably was weeks ago, but I know we were talking about the fact that now our reality, or everything that we've kind of taken for granted, our normal reality, whatever that was, everything's changed, and we've all felt a bit, what's the right word? We've all felt a bit discombobulated. There's a good word.
Good word.
I can't believe that's the word that came into my head, but anyway, that's how we feel. So it's just different. And I remember then you and I started, you were saying to me that, every little decision that we make in everything we do every day starts to bring in ethics. And I thought that was, I thought that was such an interesting thing to say, because you think even the smallest decisions, surely not, but absolutely they do. So can you talk to us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I suppose, look, I've said this before, but ethics is a doing word. In that sense, it should have been a verb. It's every time you make a choice, you are doing ethics, I suppose, is the best way to put it. And I think that what we do is in our lives, we rely on unthinking practices. Hello? Hi, Zell. We rely on unthinking practices. So I think that we get through life because 80% of the decisions we make, we don't actually have to think about. It would be absolutely exhausting if we had to think about all those decisions. And I think, in fact, that's how, particularly in the workplace, we can find, you know, as they say, good people doing bad things, because you fall into these unthinking practices. But what COVID has done, or this pandemic has done, is created a situation where you actually, it's no longer possible to assume that the good that you're doing is going to be unambiguously good. So I spoke to this professor, Michael Bauer. He's up at Fordham University in New York, and he described it as being on a raft while you're still trying to build it. And you're stepping on top of other people's toes while you're trying to build this raft, while you're still trying to be on it and trying to survive. And I had friends of mine at the beginning going, you know, calling and going, can I go to a friend's barbecue? And can I do this? And can I visit my parents? And can I do this? And so every single decision became something that you had to think about, that you had to recognize could have a consequence, an unintended consequence that could actually be dire. So, I mean, that just ultimately creates a sense of a moral fatigue, because what the right thing to do is no longer clear. And that is truly exhausting. I think we're so used to an environment where we're fairly playful in our ways that we get along in this world. We can make a mistake here, we can make a mistake there. It's okay. You know, this is just our world that we live in. And all of that came to a sudden stop. It was no longer okay. So yeah, I think it makes us all very acute of the fact that everything that we do and every decision we make has an ethical element to it. And that involves consideration of so much more than just yourself.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about, you know, the moral fatigue or the moral exhaustion, and I know a lot of our community here, I'd love to go into that a bit more, because, and maybe it's just me, I mean, we talk a lot about maybe the more obvious fatigue, you know, we're working long hours, we're not moving enough, you know, all those manifestations of why we're tired and it's different, and you know, we're on this emotional roller coaster. But until I was chatting to you, I hadn't really thought of it from the angle that part of what's exhausting us is what you're talking about now, that all our knowns are unknown now.
Yeah. And I think what we've got to be careful of, and we speak of this at the Ethics Centre too, is that idea that moral fatigue is, you know, can cause people to kind of put ethics on the side for a minute because it's just too much, and decisions need to be made quickly. We can't afford to wait. And it's a little bit tempting to just park ethics for a minute, just so that you can just get through it. And I think there's that idea too, that if all we do is aim to get to the other side, we're actually not evolving through this process. And we're living this false dream that when we get to the other side of this pandemic, everything will still be exactly the same. And it won't be. So moral fatigue is actually just part of the process. But what we don't want to do is end up with moral injury. So that's when you're looking in the rear vision mirror and you're going, wow, if only I had done this, if only I'd stopped to think about this. So it's that balance of realizing that you're exhausted about having to constantly question your actions and your behaviors. But in fact, if you don't, you might end up really regretting something that you've done. So, you know, it's a really hard balance. And it's quite exhausting. We're slowly developing into a new norm. And I think everyone's feeling that a little bit. And I think at that point is where we've got to be a little bit careful, because we've made shortcuts. We've done things that we've needed to do that are beyond our processes and our systems, and even potentially we've moved faster than regulation. And if we're not careful, that will become the new norm. So I do think we also need to question some of the decisions we've made very quickly because it was essential, so that we're just sure that they're the choices that are going to be right for the new future.
And it's so hard to know, isn't it? Because we don't know. And I think this is one of those things. I mean, we talk a lot about, so the community here, these wonderful people are leaders and their team members and their mums and dads and all these different roles that we play. And, we've reflected with a few of our guests that we don't know what's on the other side. Like, we don't even know what the other side is. Mm-hmm. But as a leader, we need to be forward thinking, as well as dealing in the moment and responding tactically, which is what you're saying now. And I think it represents, from a business perspective, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we don't know what we're going into. Mm. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we're not going back to how it was. So I feel that's, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
You and I were chatting about, and you just used the word how we evolve through this, which I think is a really beautiful word, because you almost like, I think we are coming out of that initial, oh my God, what's happening, survival. And then this is the thing humans normalize. So we've all kind of gone, okay, well, this is still not great, but it's becoming more normal. But how do we evolve through this and actually really think about what we want to hold on to and what we actually want to get rid of?
I think it's it's a good time to actually let go of things that aren't working and just being careful that we hold on to things that do. So I think that I've seen situations where people have had to skirt around the system to get something achieved through this time, and I think what is a smart thing to do is to look at what was that system in place that they had to skirt around in the first place? And was that system there for a good reason? And if it wasn't for a good reason, how can we adjust that, or how can we make amends for that? Because ultimately, I think if people are having to get around things that they don't believe in or they think is a waste of time, they're going to end up disengaging. And then you're going to fall into that trap where they're going to rationalize their behavior for getting to where they've got to, and they're going to stop caring if other people are also rationalizing or doing things that might not be the right thing to do. So I think that is part of it. But also I think that there are things that we need to hold on to. So if there are systems in place that people are finding difficult, but they are essential systems, I think then organizations should then go, okay, let's talk about why they're essential. Perhaps the communication hasn't been there. I find often with compliance, it's only really, really effective if people understand why it's in place. So this is actually a great opportunity to start measuring what's going on in your organization and looking around to see what's being avoided, what's been taken advantage of, what's really working. It's a rare opportunity, and I think a lot can be learned. Yeah.
Look, I think that's such a great reflection, because we're so busy. Like even now, all of us saying, oh, we're not commuting and we're not having meetings, but now we've replaced that with a full deck of everything else. And it is a time for reflection about what's important and what don't we want to, even we've had leaders on. Renato was on from IOOF a couple of weeks ago, and, we were reflecting then that, to your point, because it was a crisis and because things had to happen, they managed to get basically the whole of IOOF working remotely in 2 or 3 days. And his reflection was, in the normal world, that would never have been possible because there would have been all these barriers and things. So his reflection then was, well, how do we then take the great stuff to prove that we can make decisions and mitigate risk and do it the right way without going back to the cumbersome way that we used to do things? So I think it's a great reflection for leaders. Can you tell us a bit more about the Ethics Alliance? Because I think that'd be really fascinating for us to understand a bit more about that organisation, because it's not just financial services. So you would be seeing lots of different businesses from all sorts of industries and how they're navigating and evolving through this. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, so the Alliance, the Ethics Alliance, brings together, as you said, businesses from all different industries. It's purely around ethics. So I think there was a recognition that industries have focus groups that look at regulation, that look at compliance, that look at all different issues, but not at ethics. And so, yeah, we have from aged care to communications to travel to mining to financial services, the legal sector. One of the organizations that has 75,000 employees globally, I thought they shared something that was really wonderful with us. And that was an idea of a very brief wellness survey. And although that sounds obvious and it sounds like something that probably most people have in play, what came up with these industry groups was that everybody has the programs available for their employees should they need it, whether it was around resilience or whether it was around mental health or whether it was around family support. Everybody had the programs, but nobody was actually taking the temperature of the employees to see, how are you? How are you? And I think now, for example, we're living in this just because of COVID, there's a false comfort being found in being busy. I'll say to a colleague, how are you? And they go, well, I've got a meeting at 3 and I thought I might speak to so-and-so. And I go, no. How are you? How are you? And so I thought that was a really interesting thing that this organization was doing. It was 5 very simple questions, but very pointed to just asking, how are you in this situation? How do you feel in your role? So that they could then maybe, shift the services they have available, or at least just have a deeper understanding, a human understanding. I thought that was a wonderful thing to share, and something that we all thought that everybody had and took for granted, but actually didn't. Yeah.
Isn't it always? I think that's brilliant. It's. I think we dismiss the obvious or the simple things because they're simple.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things that I'm picking up as well. Is you sort of, you're right. You expect, oh yeah, well we ask how people are. That's what you do. And we're all empathetic leaders, and everyone's concerned about staff well-being and all of that sort of thing. But I think sometimes we forget that the most simple things that we can implement are the most effective. What are you seeing around, because we've got a couple of levels of course here, and especially with financial services, which is the majority of our community here. So we're not only, we're worrying about our families, probably ourselves, our staff, and how do we know how they are, because they're remote and it's via Zoom and all of that. And we often get, leaders saying, well, I've still got a business to run, but I really want to check in with the staff to how do I balance that? On top of all that, of course, then we've all got members or clients or customers who are also doing it tough. What are you seeing around? Because I think this comes to, I guess, your point about how do you start to balance all these decisions and what's happening all over the place and what's the right thing to do?
I think, and you're going to hear this from Damien tomorrow, I'm sure. Damien's an Alliance member as well, his organisation. But I think purpose, I can't stress that enough. Purpose, values, and the principles are really, really important. I think we're in situations where we need to prioritise things for different reasons, where we're making decisions in an environment that's completely uncertain. We're not sure what it's going to look like tomorrow, let alone today. It's like, you know how to type, and then suddenly somebody jumbles all the keys around. It's as simple as that. You're like, oh my God, I don't even know how to type a note, And I think what you can fall back onto is the fact that there is a purpose. And no matter what the uncertainty is, that purpose needs to remain true, and and the values that you hold, dear to yourself as an individual and as an organization, and the principles, which is the behaviors that you're expecting of people, that does present a kind of a lens, almost like a comfort zone in a sense, that allows you to feel confident that you're making the right choice, that you're prioritizing the right thing. And I think it is really worth coming back together as groups, teams, whatever that looks like in your organization or in your home, and saying, okay, guys, what do we want here? And you were talking about leaders. Leaders need to see well into the future and understand, is the purpose going to get us there and bring their teams along with them. So I think that does help. I think also forgiveness is hugely important. We're all going to make mistakes, and I think that there needs to be an understanding that as long as someone's really sincere with what they're doing and we've made sure that they're capable of it and given them the tools that they need to deal with this new environment, then that's as much as we can reasonably expect, even from an ethical perspective.
I love that, what you're talking about, because it comes back to the fundamentals, doesn't it? And I think it comes back to this point about we're so busy, aren't we, everyone? We're doing meetings. So I'd love to know how many of our leaders in this crew have actually had a meeting with their team specifically about checking in with the purpose and the vision. And actually, because, you know, the one thing that I relearn every day, and I think we all are, is communication. And we make assumptions, we have different styles, it's different mediums, there's different interpretations, we hear different things, you know, we're humans. So I'd just love to know how many of us are having a meeting with the purpose to talk about purpose, not about KPIs and deliverables and all that sort of thing. I think it's a really important point.
And particularly because of the pivot, you know, pirouette, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I like pirouette. That's good. We're going to use pirouette from now on.
Or agility, all those terms that are used basically saying, we don't know what we're doing, or, well, you know, I mean, we know what we're doing, but we don't know where we're going. This is an uncertain world. So every time that shift is made, if you're losing that North Star, that compass, you could end up, you know, in trouble down the way and suddenly be a part of an organization or a team that's sort of fallen off the raft, drifting somewhere, you know.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that it can be quite insidious, that falling off the raft, because as with everything we're saying, and this is pre-COVID as well, right? But it happens gradually, doesn't it? If you don't keep bringing back people to the North Star, you know, and you're right, it's one decision or one little thing or one, and before you know it, you've drifted right out here without actually ever having that intention. And it's very easy that can happen. I'd love to also talk to you about, can you tell us a bit more about the banking and finance oath? Because I know that's something that you're really passionate about. And I'd love you to talk to us about that and why you're passionate about that. And also, has what you're seeing around the banking and finance oath and financial services, has COVID become a bit of a common enemy that's sort of focusing the industry? What's happening?
So I am passionate about the banking and finance oath because it's just as we were segueing right then about a North Star, about a compass, and about, you know, your morals, I suppose, or your ethics, really. It's not, you know, I hate sometimes even using the word ethics is difficult because people are making an assumption that you're in fact telling them they've done something wrong, or they're being unethical, because so often we use the word ethics when something's gone wrong, which is a shame. We should actually be using this word a lot more, because a hell of a lot more good happens than bad. So the banking and finance oath is very much that. There's a Hippocratic oath in medicine. Lawyers take an oath, engineers take an oath. It's a sign of professionalism. Now, people would argue that financial services is not a profession per se, but individuals that work in financial services feel professional. They're proud of what they do. I have been now working in financial services for over 6 years, and you know, they're dedicated people to the role that they play. So the oath is literally a commitment that you make that just says it's 710. It's just basically saying that you'll use ethical restraint, you'll consider others when you make your decision, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it creates an environment, a supportive environment. There are, you know, organisations that are 100% committed, the smaller ones like the judos and the vaults and whatnot. Much easier, I suppose, for those guys. But recently, you know, the Banking and Finance Oath was asked to contribute to a publication, a global publication. And so I just wrote something there that looked at the future, because after the Hain Commission, you could see that 75 recommendations, institutions were just going nuts, head down. It was a very competitive environment, which is fair. But they're all so separated. And I work now with the Alliance with the energy sector. That sector has come together under a charter, just under some ethical principles. They're all fierce competitors still, but they've come together under this. I talked with Marion Kelly in Ireland. There's a culture board. All the banks have come together just under ethics and culture, still competitive. So I wrote this thing and said, oh, come on, can't our financial services do the same thing? We could come together just under ethics. You know, the banking and finance oath could be a standard for individuals going forward, and we could just share this together in, you know, in this professional sort of, you know, state. And I wrote this, and, you know, and then COVID came along, and I am personally just really proud of even just being a part of financial services. That, you know, from what I've seen, there's been sensitivity, there's been accommodation, there's been generosity. I mean, you know, professional, you know, attention to the greater good, you know, and to the public good. I just, yeah, I've actually been really impressed. The collaboration that's been happening. There's been a couple of blips, and there's always going to be blips. Things like taking the oath doesn't mean you won't make a mistake. Jump out there, apologize, learn from your mistake, make it better. Yeah, so, you know, there are some silver linings in this. But, you know, just very briefly, I spoke to a colleague called Bob McCarthy. He's an Irish fellow, and he talked about the Celtic Tiger years, 10 years prior to the GFC. And he said it was a time where Ireland was booming. They were like the envy of the planet, right? And so, and they felt they deserved it, totally deserved it, because of their history and the famine, right back to the famine. And so, you know, he had 2 houses, he had BMWs, they traveled overseas, they did all of this, they lived it big and totally rationalized it. And then the GFC hit. 60% cut off the board, unemployment up to, you know, over 25% at one stage. And, you know, and they're still just surviving from that now. And he said that they really learnt from that mistake, that they don't, you know, that they haven't reverted back to the way they were before. And they're not completely, you know, frugal and threadbare necessarily, but they look at life with a different filter. And you know, I wonder, in Australia, we did escape so much pain through the GFC because of our good management. And here we are again with COVID, as tragic as it is. But in Australia, whether it's geography, whether it's our great health system, and I actually think partially because of the fires, ironically, which kept tourists away over that summer period. Once again, relative to the world, we have come out of this, you know, a hell of a lot better than a lot of other people. And it's amazing. But, you know, let's not lose this opportunity. I was at the beach yesterday. I looked up and I saw a plane. I went, oh my God, a plane. I haven't seen one of those in months. You know, we can do it. If we want to, you know, address climate issues, we can do it. If we want to bring an industry together for the public good, we can do it. So I am passionate about it, about us all coming together and making good of what's happening and happened to our industry.
Look, I love that passion, and, you know, I mean, I've known this industry for a long time, a very long time myself, and it's interesting, isn't it? Why, on one hand, you think, why does it take a crisis to point everyone in the right direction? But it's awesome, right? So, but I think it's fantastic, and I think this is your recurring point, is that now is this time to actually reflect. What's the new filter? What do we want to take forward with us? And what do we actually want to consciously say, you know what, I don't want to go back to that. We've proven we can do it. I think it's really inspirational. Cris, we get out of time really fast here. I might have said that to you. Before I let you off the hook.
Yes, please.
Because I'd like to actually understand what was your journey from founding a Manhattan theatre company to what you're doing today? Can you just give us a bit of a
Yeah.
Favour?
Well, I've always loved storytelling. I love the theatre. I did love that. So I married an American, and when he came to Australia to see, meet the family, he just went, "Whoa, what are we doing in America?" And so I was dragged kicking and screaming out of Manhattan with a little 1-year-old, and then got here and sort of continued performing. And then I was pregnant with my second child, and a friend said, "Well, why don't you have a bash at editing? You've got an eye for this." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I had a bash at editing, and then next thing I knew, we had a production company making films and whatnot, which I absolutely loved. And then my business partner, she was heading off for a career change, and I thought, oh, I don't want to do this alone. I love to bounce. So I thought, oh, I'll go do a degree. So I jumped in, did a psychology degree, and ended up at the Ethics Centre as part of my internship. And so I was put on a project there on the ethics of asylum seeking, actually, with Tim Supamasan at the time. And after that, they said, "Would you like to stay?" And that was nearly 10 years ago.
Wow.
And can I make one more point? Sorry, apart from the fact that I would love everybody in this call to take the banking and finances, but that's beside the point. On your point about imposter syndrome, I suffer from that terribly myself. And then I realized, though, the saving grace of that is that the only person I know so far who doesn't suffer from it is Donald Trump. So I thought, well, it's not a bad thing to suffer from imposter syndrome, right? But it is a scary thing. I'll have to go back and listen to that one.
So, no, one, that is hilarious. I can see everyone cracking up on my Brady Bunch screen here. But it's so true. But the thing is about imposter syndrome, and it's so interesting because I think and we've got a lot of our repeat community at lots of these sessions, it comes up regardless of who we're talking to. It's got nothing to do with age, experience, title, life experience. It's
a more a woman thing too, unfortunately. But I hope that will change. And as long as we're true to what we believe in and what we're saying, how can anybody accuse us of being an imposter, right? That's kind of where I have to put my head.
I love it. It's a great point to unfortunately end with. I could talk to you for hours. Before you go, can you have you just got a couple of parting tips or calls to action for our crew that you can leave with us?
Take the time to self-reflect. Put a buffer zone between your Zoom meetings. Really, ethical thinking is it's a muscle. Exercise it. Take time. Self-reflect on your thoughts. Think about your consequences. And also, with Zoom and everything, be mindful of informal communications that will start to open. Because ethics is about making sure that everybody's in the room that needs to be in the room, that can contribute to something so that the better decisions are made. Guess that's it. You sprung that one on me. I could have put more thought into that one.
Look how well you did with such wisdom. I love it. Again, it's the simple things, isn't it? So thank you so much for your time. It's been an awesome chat, and so great to have you.
One thing. Just a few, and to Judith, and to all of you as a community, I just think that what you're doing and staying connected and staying informed and sharing is absolutely brilliant. So I congratulate that and thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Cris. That really means a lot. Yes, thank you. Really means a lot. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It has been another great session, as always. And just a reminder, if you would like to be part of this amazing community and become a member, we would love to have you, and we'd love you to experience it for yourself. So please do click on that link that I'm sure Cam will put back in the chat as well, and come as our guest to a mentoring session and a masterclass, and just find out how fabulous and supportive this community really is. Thanks, everyone, and see you tomorrow at 12 with Damien Moo. That is also going to be a lot of fun. See you soon. Thanks, Cris.
Bye. Thank you.